There is a rare breed of individuals who possess an almost supernatural radar for the unspoken. The second they step into a space, they detect invisible shifts in the atmosphere. No one is arguing. There is no visible conflict. Yet, their minds instantly map the entire psychological landscape: a fleeting averted gaze, a rigidly held smile, or a polite greeting dripping with artificial warmth. Society often praises this intense perceptiveness as a rare superpower, but the hidden reality is that this relentless observation is actually an exhausting cognitive prison. The fatal flaw is the complete absence of a pause button. You cannot simply exist in the present moment. Instead, you carry these microscopic interactions home, obsessively dismantling and endlessly replaying them. A single, momentary conversational pause morphs into a massive labyrinth of anxious overthinking. If this resonates, you already know hypervigilance isn't just about high intelligence. It is the heavy burden of constantly decoding a secret language that everyone else blissfully ignores. While it masquerades as a blessing, it quietly drains your emotional reserves. Today, we will unpack the psychological roots of this relentless awareness and discover exactly how to stop your own mind from swallowing you whole. You aren't just observant, you are trapped in a state of hypervigilance. Psychology often links this to a trait identified by Dr. Elaine Aron, known as sensory processing sensitivity. Your nervous system is functioning like an ultra-fine coffee filter. It automatically absorbs, catches, and feels the bitter granules of human interaction that other people swallow without even noticing. It gives you an extremely high-resolution view of the world. But for many of you, this trait wasn't just handed to you at birth. It is an inheritance. It is an inheritance of survival that took root in an emotionally unpredictable environment. Let's go back in time. Let's look at where this began. Maybe it was 1998. You were a kid sitting on the living room floor watching Boy Meets World on a Friday night, but you weren't fully watching the screen. Your ears were tuned to the hallway. You could not afford to live innocently. You had to learn how to become a human radar station. You memorized the exact acoustic difference between your father shutting the front door normally and shutting it when he was silently furious. You knew the exact sound of tires hitting the gravel driveway, measuring the speed to predict the mood of the person stepping out of the car. You learned how to interpret heavy footsteps on the carpet. You knew exactly when to shrink into the corner and make yourself invisible, and when it was safe to speak. Biologically speaking, your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, was permanently flipped to the on position. It recorded a permanent message in your nervous system. It told you that your environment is not safe, and you must keep scanning to avoid disaster. No one sat you down and taught you this. Your nervous system automatically built a network of neurons to help you predict emotional earthquakes before they hit. And over time, that survival vigilance fused to your skin. It became your identity. Let's look at the science of what is actually happening inside your head today. It comes down to a system called the Default Mode Network, or DMN. In a typical brain, the DMN activates quietly in the background when a person is resting, daydreaming, or letting their mind wander. But in your brain, this network is hyper-connected. It tends to stay violently active, pulling you into a constant state of self-referential thinking and deep environmental analysis. 70%. Research indicates that up to 70% of individuals with high sensory processing sensitivity also show heightened activation in brain regions responsible for deep cognitive processing. You do not just experience life. You run a hidden equation for every single interaction. Here is what nobody talks about. The shadow side of this trait is a profound, isolating exhaustion. You live in a constant state of analysis paralysis. A conversation is never just a conversation. Take a very real, modern example. Your boss sends a message on Slack at 4:03 p.m. that simply says, "Come see me when you have a minute." For a normal person, that is just a meeting. For you, it is an emergency siren. The moment you read those words, a wave of tension floods your chest. You sense an invisible coldness in the phrasing. You instantly begin questioning everything you've done for the past 6 months. Did I mess up that client presentation? Was my email too abrupt yesterday? Half of you is nodding, holding your iced coffee, and participating in the office. The other half is running a hidden marathon of worst-case scenarios. This analysis doesn't just point outward at your boss or your friends. It turns the camera completely inward. Psychology calls this metacognition. This is the ability to think about your own thinking. In most people, it is a helpful tool. In you, it is a switch that never turns off. The familiar chain reaction often looks like this. An emotion appears. You immediately analyze it, and then you brutally judge it. You are walking outside, and suddenly feel a wave of sadness. Instead of just letting yourself cry, you float outside your body and judge yourself. You tell yourself you have no right to feel empty because you have a good job and pay your $1,800 rent on time. You cross your arms and interrogate your own feelings. You even dissect your own joy. You are at a dinner party, and you laugh at a joke. But the very next second, part of your mind is floating near the ceiling, looking down at yourself. You wonder if you laughed too loudly. You wonder if your smile looked fake. You never miss a single step in the dance of socialization, but you entirely lose the joy of the music. When that analytical camera runs for too long, it creates a very quiet kind of grief. It is not the loss of childhood innocence, but the loss of relational innocence. Because of your deep awareness, you constantly see the backstage of human behavior. Science refers to this as having a hyper-developed theory of mind. You know that people rarely say exactly what they mean. You see a coworker bring you a coffee and compliment your recent project, and instead of just saying, "Thank you," your brain scans for motives. You wonder what favor they are about to ask for. You realize that a man's overconfident swagger on a first date is just a cheap curtain hiding a massive fear of rejection. You lose the ability to fully trust the surface of words. A compliment always carries layers. An apology never feels complete, because you know they are just trying to calm you down, not take actual accountability. You do not hate the world for this. You just become extremely cautious. You feel incredibly lonely even in a crowded room, because no one else is seeing the hidden layer of truth that you are seeing. And you don't just see it, you feel it in your physical body. Science calls this concept interoception. This is the brain's ability to sense the internal state of the body, processed by the insular cortex. Your interoception system is incredibly sensitive. You drink an espresso, and the caffeine makes your heart beat slightly faster. For most people, that just feels like waking up. But for your nervous system, it is a threat. Your brain detects the elevated heart rate, flips through its data records, and shouts that a panic attack is starting. Normal physical sensations become exaggerated warning signals. You live in a brutal anxiety loop where your body is constantly processing emergency data, even when you are just sitting on the couch. Because of this, your empathy is permanently switched on. Psychology calls this cognitive empathy, but for you, it is emotional absorption. Your mind works like a sheet of absorbent paper. You sit next to a stranger on the subway who is bouncing their leg with nervous energy, and suddenly your own chest feels tight. A friend vents to you about their messy breakup, And after you hang up the phone, their heavy, dark energy sits in your living room for 3 days. You become the ultimate emotional regulator for everyone around you. People love being near you because you know exactly how to soften your voice and make them feel seen. But the price you pay is total depletion. You become a container for other people's emotional waste. You probably blame yourself for this. You probably wonder why you overcomplicate your life. But here is the reframe you need to internalize today. You are not broken. You are carrying a profound intelligence. Your hyper-awareness was a brilliant, necessary strategy of control. When you were younger, understanding the room was your armor. You believed that if you could predict every variable, you would never be blindsided by pain. But you are an adult now. The war is over, and you are still wearing your heavy armor to the grocery store. You cannot simply turn off your awareness. That would be like asking someone with perfect vision to voluntarily see the world as blurry. The solution is not to become less aware. The solution is to stop carrying everything you notice. In therapy, breaking this cycle means setting emotional boundaries with your own thoughts. You have to learn to anchor yourself in 3 specific realities. First, not every silence is a hidden message. If someone takes 4 hours to reply to a text, they might just be exhausted. If your coworker walks past you without smiling, they might just have a migraine. You have to stop personalizing the random static of the world. Second, not every emotion that appears needs an action. When anxiety shows up in your chest, you do not have to interrogate it. You can simply say, "My heart is beating fast, and my brain is trying to protect me." You can observe the physical sensation without judgment and let it pass. Third, not every insight needs to be spoken or acted upon. You might clearly see a friend's hidden insecurity. You might see the exact reason their relationship is failing. But you do not have to become their therapist. You can notice the mess without stepping in to clean it up. You learn that your clarity is only a gift when it comes with strict boundaries. When you practice this letting go, something remarkable begins to shift inside of you. Remember that 4:03 p.m. Slack message. You will still feel the initial spike of adrenaline, but instead of spiraling into 10 different versions of the future, you will take a breath, look at the message, and simply walk into the office. Your awareness doesn't disappear. It matures. You stop using your sharp mind to predict disaster, and you start using it to anchor yourself in the present. You move from fear to curiosity. You realize you cannot turn off the ceiling light in your mind, but you can change its intensity. You can turn it from a sharp, interrogating laser that exposes every flaw into a warm candle. A candle bright enough to understand human fragility, yet gentle enough to warm yourself as well. You are a deep thinker. You are a deep feeler. If you ever catch yourself being entirely quiet in a room full of loud people, understand that it is not indifference. It is a beautiful form of wisdom. A wisdom that has finally learned to understand life instead of being imprisoned by it. If you found yourself nodding along to this, if you've ever mentally rehearsed a simple conversation for an hour only to have the other person just say, "Okay," leave a comment below. Tell me which sign fit you the most. And think about that one friend who always acts as your emotional anchor. The one who always knows exactly what to say to calm you down. You should send this video to them, because the person who always understands everyone else is usually the one who is starving to be understood themselves. You are not alone in this. Your depth is not a flaw. It is a brilliant, hard-earned gift. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to keep exploring the psychology of who you really are. I will see you in the next one.